Welcome to Mafia, a new podcast telling stories of America's criminal underworld.
Gotti assumed the position of head of the Gambino family.
And using the name Donnie Brasco, I was able to infiltrate the Bonanno crime family in New York City.
Bugsy Siegel is an American mob legend.
One man changed the whole texture and landscape of crime in America.
Listen to Mafia every Wednesday on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favorite shows.
Welcome to the 6th episode of True Gambling Stories. I'm your writer and host, Sean Chapin, and I really want to thank all you guys out there who download and listen each month. We seem to be getting so many more listeners each month, and I really appreciate you guys who tell a friend or share on social media. If you've missed any episodes, hit that download button and put on those earbuds. Go back and give them a listen. If you like our show, a 5-star review or a nice comment is always appreciated. Gambling stories are the name of the game here, and each month we offer you a unique story of gambling or poker lore. They usually involve plenty of action with some dice, some cards, and like in the last episode, even an occasional gunfight. This week's episode brings us back to the state of Nevada, home to numerous casinos and a mecca for gamblers. But this story doesn't feature those glamorous casinos on the world-famous Las Vegas Strip. In this story, we head to the state's capital, Carson City. This episode lands us in prison, not for cheating in a casino, but in an actual casino itself. A little confused? Stay tuned. Betting behind bars, the Nevada State Prison Casino. There's always been a little gamble in Nevada. Even before becoming a state in 1864, men were heading to the region with the discovery of silver in 1858. The Comstock lode in 1859 only sped up the arrival of thousands of miners hoping to strike it rich. These men put it all on the line in hopes of hitting their own jackpot. The Comstock was the first major discovery of silver ore in the U.S., and mining camps and boom towns followed. It became the biggest mining rush since the California Gold Rush in 1849. By the mid-1870s, much of the mining had died out, but continued sporadically through the 1920s. Many became rich, and others lost big. Sound familiar? Nevada officially became the 36th state in the Union on Halloween of 1864. The state added 3 more electoral votes for President Abraham Lincoln and helped ensure his re-election only days later. Even from those early days, anti-gambling laws were loosely enforced. However, opponents had gaming officially outlawed in 1910. But by 1931, gambling was made legal again, with slot machines, cards, and dice found just about everywhere. The Northern Club in downtown Las Vegas was the first licensed casino in the state. It had offered gambling and liquor even when they were made illegal during Prohibition. In the coming years, the gambling industry would grow throughout the Silver State. As the Wild West got wilder with more miners flocking to the state, territorial officials began to see the need for a prison to house criminals who also headed west. Maybe fittingly for a state now full of mega casino resorts, the Nevada State Prison began as a hotel. Carson City founder Abraham Curry, originally from New York, came to the area in 1858 and made use of the Eagle Valley near Carson City to open the Warm Springs Hotel. The hotel served as the first meeting place of the territorial government, and even at that first meeting, officials discussed the need for a prison. Curry offered up his hotel as a substitute and became the first warden. But the Warm Springs would soon become the state's prison full-time. In 1862, Curry sold the hotel, 20 acres of land, and a sandstone quarry on the property to the territorial government for $80,000. The New Yorkers' entrepreneurial gamble had paid off. The Nevada State Prison featured some of the worst criminals in the state, and in 1903 it was designated as the state's facility to carry out all death sentences. At that time, those facing capital punishment were hung on a gallows on site. By 1910, the state began allowing those facing execution to choose between hanging or a firing squad.
Ready! Aim! Fire!
Murderer Andrew Merkovich became the only man executed by shooting in 1912. He believed firing squad would be a quicker death, but when 5 volunteers couldn't be found to do the deed, the state ordered the use of a shooting machine. Called the Shooting Gallery of Steel, the 1,000-pound execution contraption housed 3 Savage Model 30-30 caliber rifles. On the morning of May 14th, the device worked, but no other prisoners in the state would be executed by firing squad again, or machine. After the state passed legislation changing the method of execution to lethal gas in 1921, the prison became the first in the country to use a gas chamber to execute a prisoner in 1925. The use of gas continued for executions until lethal injection began to be used in 1985. Beyond its history of executions, the Nevada State Prison has some other unique historical notes of interest. Sena Loyd is the director of the Carson City Library and the co-author of the book Nevada State Prison. She talks a bit about the unique history of the facility, including some interesting fossils discovered on site.
The building that currently stands was not the building that stood back when it was a territorial prison, though it is on the same property. The building itself is actually built with stone quarried from the prisoners at that location. There's also a couple other buildings around Carson City that were built with that same stone quarried from the prison, and they are some of the oldest buildings in Carson City. But more recently in the Nevada State Prison's history, we see different things happening in the prison that made it very unique. One of those things was it was one of the locations where a good number of films, prison films, were filmed for Hollywood. And most recently, An Innocent Man with Tom Selleck was filmed at NSP. We also have footprints of monster men. So, as I was saying, this was a quarry, and as a quarry, you have essentially fossilized pieces of bone that are discovered on the state prison site. You also have footprints of what they called as monster men, which were actually giant sloths. But they did look like, I guess Bigfoot's footprints. And some of those fossilized footprints you actually can see today. And at times, the prison was actually open for people to come and view these footprints. And so they could actually come and tour the caves that held these footprints.
With an assortment of murderers, thieves, and other criminals, discipline was a big player at the prison. Inmates facing solitary confinement were sent to the hole, a tunnel bored into the side of the sandstone quarry that surrounded and became part of the prison. Work and community service were encouraged for inmates to remain busy, out of trouble, and help rehabilitate themselves. Inmates could work on the prison farm, in the rawhide shop, or even constructing roads. There was a greenhouse to grow vegetables, or opportunities for prisoners to work in the auto shop. Wardens believed that idleness led to bad habits, and instilling responsibility was good for those behind bars. One other activity became available in 1932 that allowed for a unique form of prison recreation and rehabilitation. When gambling became legal in 1931, casinos popped up all over the state, from Vegas to Carson City to Reno. And another unique casino opened for business as well, at the Nevada State Prison itself. It seems odd for most of us, a casino inside a prison. But for a gambling state like Nevada, it must have seemed pretty normal and an opportunity to keep prisoners busy with something other than planning their next crimes or rioting or fighting or antagonizing guards. Playing cards or tossing dice seems like an odd activity in a prison. For us, gambling involves maybe a trip to Las Vegas for some blackjack, or maybe a few drinks with some friends at the craps table. It certainly doesn't seem like an activity that should be found in a prison meant to punish criminals. But for prison officials, the activity seemed like a normal part of recreation, just like the prison's basketball, baseball, and boxing teams. So from 1932 until 1967, the prison housed a casino for prisoners and run by prisoners. The casino was originally housed in a solid rock room carved from the sandstone surrounding the prison. It was called the Bullpen because it was located next to the central prison yard. The casino became a unique feature of the Nevada prison. What was an average day like in the casino? Author Sena Loyd spent considerable time researching this aspect of the facility's history to answer that question.
Really, a day in the prison looked very much, or prison casino looked very much like it would in any other casino. If you were wanting to go play some of the different games, these games were bankrolled by the prisoners themselves, and so if they wanted to start up a game, they could. There was also sports betting in this casino. So what you would see is you would not see them using cash or currency, the U.S. dollar that you see today. They would be using what was known as prison brass. That prison brass was tokens that were stamped on one side with a denomination and then stamped on the other with Nevada State Prison. Those denominations were anywhere from 5 cents all the way up to $5 towards the end of the prison term. But the prison brass could be used to buy anything in the prison store. It could also be deposited in the prison office where it was backed dollar for dollar. And it was on par with a banking system and the banking industry where inmates would get monthly deposits showing their deposits and their withdrawals. And there really was a lot of different types of table games, but you could also bet on sporting events. But inmates could play craps, blackjack, poker, gin rummy. And they would also have to pay a per-game fee of $25 to $75 every 6 months to the prison itself.
The old axiom was true even at a prison casino. The house always wins. But in this case, at least the night's stay and the meals were always comped. An average night in the Bullpen looked pretty much like a scene in a casino today. Players of every age, race, and criminal record gathered around a craps table, but all dressed in their blue inmate uniforms. A few might be placing a pass line bet. A couple other inmates toss a few tokens on the 6 and 8. Just like in a casino, the stick man keeps the action going, moving the dice back to the shooter at the end of the table. 2 more dealers work the opposite side of the table, placing odds on bets and moving chips around. Then, as many craps players have seen too often, they rake all the chips off the felt when someone rolls that dreaded 7. A few feet away, players might be doubling down at the blackjack table, or betting big in a game of 7-card stud at the poker table. Photos from the time show about 10 gambling tables in all in the Bullpen. Lamps extend from the walls to shed some light on the action. While the games may have been run by and for prisoners, guards keep a watchful eye on the action. And while the Bullpen housed pretty much every game in a casino, inmates looking for slot machines would have to wait for parole to find a one-armed bandit. Howard Herz is a longtime casino memorabilia collector and appraiser. He's visited the prison and also works with the Nevada State Prison Preservation Society. I want to stress, Howard has been to the prison but not been an inmate. He describes a bit more about how running the games worked.
The operation was basically run by the inmates. You could buy into a game and actually become the boss of the game based on licensing of about $25 to $75, depending upon whether it was for a poker game or blackjack and 21 craps. So there was a committee of inmates that made the determination whether you could boss a game.
After a few years in the 1930s, the casino was moved to a larger sandstone block building with barred windows. The new location allowed some daylight in and more room for the games. Along with the regular casino games, a surprising betting activity included even a sports book. Inmates could place wagers on baseball games, horse races, and any number of other sporting events. A photo of the betting area at the time shows a barred window for placing bets very much similar to the cage at a modern casino. Signs even spelled out parlay options available to prisoners, as well as a few of the house rules. One sign read, "No tickets changed after 1 o'clock p.m. It also warned those making horse racing wagers, positively no bets taken 1 minute after post time. But with no television and little access to radio, how did the prison bookies find out results and keep up with the events? Sena Loyd offers an answer.
So for the most part, they could not watch the sports that they were betting on, though there was what we suspect when we went in and we looked at the photo images as well as hearing stories and the history from some of the past wardens, as well as looking at wardens' reports, we discovered what we believe to be a phone line in the bullpen, which allowed individuals to check on the outside world of sports. But they could bet on baseball, they could bet on many different sports.
The casino business in Las Vegas is highly regulated. The Nevada Gaming Control Board tries to keep the state's casinos on the up and up, and that includes keeping out felons and making sure that the properties are not run as criminal enterprises. Howard Herz talks a little bit about the irony of a prison run by convicted criminals.
What made it unique, first of all, the operation occurred between 1932 and 1967. And it's what we'd call an unlicensed casino, but it had some particularly unique characteristics to it. First of all, it was being operated by the inmates in a prison, and it was being operated in a state that allowed legal gaming. Now, the interesting part of it is also that gaming regulations that later came along said that you could eject persons if they were not completely free of criminal or corruptive elements. Of course, the irony of it all is that the law stated that someone could be removed from the casino if they had a prior conviction of a crime, which is a felony in the state of Nevada or in the United States. Ironically, all the inmates were felons. So it operated against the very principles of the state that later used to do such things as the Black Book and allow casinos to remove people.
And while the casino was meant to be operated by prisoners, with prisoners doing the gambling, that wasn't always the case. Herz reflects on how prisoners dealt with cheaters, acting as casino security, as well as brothel owner Joe Conforte's time served in the prison and his impact on the casino.
Yes, it was primarily the inmates, although in later years there were some instances where some local service clubs, I guess, had a gaming night out of the prison, so you had a mixture of inmates and local businessmen in the casino area. Also in 1962, roughly, when Joe Conforte was serving time in the prison, he truly upped the ante on the games and brought in par mutual betting and other types of betting. So it essentially had all the casino operations that a normal casino would have. And being run by the inmates, they controlled the dealt with you in the harshest manner possible on the spot.
Most of us will probably find this scene pretty hard to imagine. Local businessmen and service clubs driving down to the prison for a night out to gamble among thieves and murderers. After 35 years of casino operation, a new warden took over the Nevada State Prison. Prison violence that year led to some changes for the Bullpen after some pressure from government officials.
In 1967, there was a riot, and the Bullpen, as well as their publication, the Sagebrush Rebellion, or the Sagebrush, which was named after the Sagebrush Rebellion, that building was actually bulldozed by that new warden. And so that new warden coming in went ahead and just bulldozed it, and that essentially ended the stints of the prison casino at the Nevada State Prison.
Just like an old school Vegas casino, demolished after a few decades of use, the Bullpen was destroyed. But in this case, a new sleek resort would not be built in its place. The prison announced braiding, painting, and beadwork would take the place of gambling. Not exactly a jackpot for those behind bars. Even though the facility is now closed, the Nevada State Prison Preservation Society is trying to keep its history alive. Organizers hope to have tours open to the public soon. The society is working with the state and trying to keep the prison open for those interested in seeing what went on there. An interesting footnote to the casino is that the brass tokens used in play in the Bullpen have become collector's items, as Howard Herz discusses.
Well, the gaming tokens, or the prison tokens that were used during the gaming period, generally run from anywhere from probably $15 up to several $100, depending upon the date of the token, the denomination, and the particular rarity. It's collected by a select group of collectors, primarily those who like tokens, but from what we know of the history, they were used in the gaming operation at the Nevada State Prison. And most of them have written on them NSP or Nevada State Prison.
Sometime after its closing, two men wrote a poem about the Bullpen and their time spent gambling in the casino. Ode to the Bullpen by David Parker and Jerry Quillian. 'Tis late '67 and the Bullpen is gone, but ghosts of the past have still lingered on. No more is there poker, crap table, or dice, nor armloads of groceries won with such vice. But my number is dry and I still can recall the cries of the croupier, the brass free-for-all. Bald-headed Joe in the mess hall did sit, with the hopes the 10-teamer he held wouldn't hit. Strong-hearted Hollis was calling the licks, and he bad-eyed the white shirt who'd just thrown a 6. In the far distant corner the lowball clan met, and the green felt resounded as they made their bet. The stout-hearted storeman was under the gun. His eye never flickered. He said, "I bet one." The guy with the eye shade was next in line. He flinched and he muttered and then raised a dime. The double-deck kid peered deep in his hand. With a cry of depression, the table he slammed. The tension mounted as the Texan re-raised. The others fell out and the sweaters amazed. Beheld not a 6, nor a wheel nor a 4, but 2 little deuces, and up went a roar. The tender trap has been known through the years for locker door art that'll bring you to tears. Black belt Ralph stepped up to the book with the tall photo man and the little bald cook. The barbershop man and Ireland Ed were eyeing the green sheet when Tiger, he said, "Bet Drin in the 8th, he's a winner for sure," but the boys from the tag plant were quick to demur. Sourdough Benny played the back line. Carolina appeared, clutching a dime. The boys from the laundry were losing their poke. Bird cried 7 out as if in a joke. Robert crapped out and the Indians dragged. Big Bill the boxman was filling his bag. But now sand and sage and the whippoorwill's cry replaces the blue-shirted gambler's sigh. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. We are thrilled and just delighted that you guys enjoy the show. We love bringing you a new gambling tale each month. This one was actually written and recorded in Las Vegas while I'm covering the World Series of Poker. We've had some really great coverage of that event with some more true gambling stories in print. If you want to check some of those out, make sure you visit pokernews.com if you get a chance. Please tell a few friends about the show. True Gambling Stories is a real labor of love, and we continue to grow each month. We really appreciate all the shares and likes on social media. If you enjoy us, please leave us a 5-star review or maybe a nice comment on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, wherever you guys access the podcast. Remember, an easy link to the show is truegamblingstories.com. I want to thank Sena Loyd for being such a great guest. Her book, Nevada State Prison, co-written with Jennifer Riddle, Stacey Branham, and Kurt Thomas, is available on Amazon.com. It is a great book. I highly recommend it. It has some amazing photos. Check it out. I also want to thank Howard Herz for being a big part of the show as well. To support the Nevada State Prison Preservation Society, please visit nevadastateprison.org. If you're looking for more stories about poker and gambling, please check out my book, Raising the Stakes, which is available on Amazon. True Gambling Stories is written and hosted by me, Sean Chafin. Robert Moreno does an amazing job editing and putting the whole show together. Please visit us on Facebook at True Gambling Stories, and on Twitter we are at GamblingPod. You can follow me on Twitter at Poker Traditions. You can read more of my work at SeanChafin.com. We always also need story ideas. If you've got an idea, please send it to us on Twitter. And lastly, for all your poker and gambling news, information, videos, podcasts, and my feature writing and reporting, please visit pokernews.com.
Welcome to Mafia, a new podcast telling stories of America's criminal underworld.
Gotti assumed the position of head of the Gambino family.
And using the name Donnie Brasco, I was able to infiltrate the Bonanno crime family in New York City.
Bugsy Siegel is an American mob legend.
One man changed the whole texture and landscape of crime in America.
Listen to Mafia every Wednesday on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favorite shows.